first item is attendance.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Calling the roll for the Monday, June 3rd Board of Control meeting. It is now 11:02 a.m. Nan Baker. Here. Dale Miller.
Here.
Trevor Mackler serving as an alternate for Dan Brady. Here. Mike Dever.
Here.
Matt Carroll serving as an alternate for Armin Budish.
Here.
Dennis Kennedy. Here. Lenora Lockett. Lenora Lockett. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. If we could take a look at the minutes from the last meeting from May 28th. If anyone has any questions or comments. Hearing none, I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second? Second. Motion and second. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right. We're on to any public comment.
No public comment at this time.
All right. No tabled items today.
No tabled items.
Okay. And we're on to new items.
New items. The first new item is item number BC 2019-414, Department of Public Works, recommending an award on requisition 42854 and to enter into a contract with Butler Animal Health Supply, LLC, doing business as Henry Schein Animal Health in the amount not to exceed $300,000, and it's for animal shelter medical supplies for the period June 3rd, 2019 through June 2nd, 2022.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Department of Public Works. This first item, we're looking to make an award, enter into a contract with Butler Animal Health, commonly known as Henry Schein. It's for our county kennel. It's for our medical supplies, typically bandages, gauze, medicines, other types of medicine. This was a formal bid. It was conducted through OPD. It went to 11 vendors. We had one bid submission. I know there was some pre-agenda questions about why we only got one bidder. Without actually calling all the vendors that were on that plan holders list, I can't say for certain why. I know the last time we had a formal bid, they were the only bidder as well. We've done multiple informal bids for this commodity, and they were the only bidder. I think at one point we had a second bidder for an informal bid, but they only bid on, I think, 30% of the items. So typically, this is the main supplier that we've historically bid out competitively and done business with. There has been multiple, excuse me, company mergers in this commodity over the years. I know they're actually going through a merger currently right now, I believe. So that may have impacted some of the historical results from getting bids back. This is a not to exceed as needed 3-year contract for supplies.
Was the previous contract 3 years?
It was.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second? There's a motion and second. All those in favor of approving the item, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-415, Department of Public Works, recommending an award on requisition 44588 and enter into a contract with Relocation Specialists, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $254,355 for transition planning, move coordination, and management services for the Cuyahoga County Harvard Maintenance Yard Consolidation Project. And it's for the period June 3rd, 2019 through June 2nd, 2020.
Nicole English with Public Works. So we're recommending an award to RSI. This was put out as a RFQ. 2 people responded. They were scored based on qualifications, and they were the highest ranking firm. And this is to coordinate the move of the 3 yards, which I mentioned in the questions that I answered. So the York Road, which houses road and bridge maintenance, Valley View, which is our main sanitary operation, and Brook Park, which is our fleet operation. So they will coordinate the move of all those 3 parties into the new consolidated maintenance facility.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Nicole, do you have any indication of why the other 6 vendors would not have responded?
So the 8 we selected based on people who were interested the last time. We only got 3 submissions the last time we did this for this building, so I don't think there's a ton of people that do this. It's pretty specialized. So people who submitted the last time did not submit. There was a new company that submitted with RSI, and so we didn't follow up with them, but it didn't seem like even though the 8 were sent out. It was a vendor list we had put together. I don't know that that was expected that 8 would respond, since we've only gotten a small amount in the past.
Nicole, could you talk about the work just for a minute, just more about what they do?
Sure. So they, as soon as they sign on, they start working, helping us develop the mover RFP. They're going to help us score the movers because this is the business that they do. They'll do everything from coordination, from going out into the buildings and identifying what's staying, what's moving, tagging it all. They do the day of moves, so these will happen over a couple weeks each is what will happen, some pre-moving going on, then on the weekend, the major move, they coordinate that whole effort. So when we did this building, they actually set up then in a room just down the hall, and any issues that came up once the people were in this building, if there's something missing, if there's, they got a box that wasn't theirs, they'll be the ones who coordinate and figure out where it goes. So they essentially are, boots on the ground doing everything when it comes to the move. And it is the same company that did the move here. So if you were around during this move, they were the same people who did that.
Other questions? Councilman?
Who was the other bidder that submitted, and why did you not follow up with them?
So the name, do you know the name? Sorry, Max, I don't have that form. I'll have to, I can get it for you. Lenora might have to. The main reason was their experience. RSI has done a significant amount of this work, both for hospitals, the clinic. They did, I think, a good year move. There was we were concerned that the other firm didn't show as much experience, especially on the industrial side. And actually, both of them at first, when we reviewed initially, we thought they needed to provide us a little more information because this is some, machinery and signs and tools and a little different than an office move. And so we asked both of them to clarify and give us letters back on, give us some description of how you've done this in the past. And RSI definitely on their clarification, gave us enough information that we felt comfortable they could do it.
Yes, Councilwoman.
So what happens to the 3 places that we're vacating?
They are up for sale right now. We're negotiating with buyers on all 3 of them. So you'll be seeing them come across County Council for sale.
Okay, so they're being completely vacated.
Correct.
Is everyone from these 3 places being relocated?
Yes.
No one is losing a job?
No,
Even with
they're
the
all going.
consolidation of...
I think we've been anticipating this for several years, right? Because we've been in the design process and looking for a facility. So I think the way they've been working the staffing up to this point, it's mostly administration that you'd have some overlap,
Right.
is, not filling things if we know they're going to come together. So it's mostly on admin. The different work that they all do is still going to happen. It's going to happen together. So there's a little bit of collaboration that'll happen on the office side.
Okay.
And as far as staffing the building, for more hours now they can do with all
Right.
the different staff.
Is there, if I may, is there a cost savings that you've put together that shows that the consolidation of the 3 into 1 overall will save us dollars and efficiency?
Yeah, I think we showed that when we purchased the building, we had some charts that we showed based on, just operating the buildings themselves and then some operational efficiency on equipment mainly. So they
Okay.
can share equipment because right now,
Right.
the road and bridge maintenance has a certain piece of equipment that also sanitary has sitting
Sure.
there. It's a little too hard to coordinate when they're, 25 miles apart. But now that they'll be in the same building,
Right.
we don't necessarily need, 3 forklifts. We
Right.
might just need 1 or, different type of equipment.
Plus
So
the cost of the sale of these 3 places, right? You're
the-
going to sell? Didn't you
yes,
say
we're
these-
selling them all. We did a competitive bid for those, and we think we're getting pretty good prices. So we'll be close. I think we're working on some purchase agreements. So I would think midsummer you'll be seeing those purchase agreements come through
So if I may, overall, you think that consolidating will save dollars?
for sure.
There won't be any jobs lost,
No,
but the consolidation of being able to share equipment and those type of hard costs will be,
seen, yeah.
Okay.
As a savings for sure.
thank you.
Questions? Councilman?
When are we expecting the Harvard Maintenance Yard to be open for business?
What date are we using, Mike?
So, Mike Dever with Public Works. So right now, the first move is probably going to be taking place the last 2 weeks of August, which will be first the fleet facility. We expect to have them up and running before we start bringing in the other subgroups. And then I anticipate sanitary will be the next group coming from Valley View. They'll move in. It's probably over a 2 to 3 week period that they'll move fully into the facility. At the same time, they have to remain operational because they have to still provide those services to the community. And then the final group, I think, coming over is going to be the York Road Yard, the Road and Bridge maintenance facility. They'll come over. At the same time, the Bridge Garage located by St. Malachy's at 25th and Detroit. There's 2 moves coming out of that facility too. Our survey group is located there. They'll be moving into the York or to the Harvard facility. The PRC is going to be moving to the West Shore training facility at 98th and Lorraine. So we're working closely with HHS. Dan Best is here, has been very instrumental in helping that come together. We hope to have the PRC moved out of the Bridge Garage by I think it's late July now. And so they'll be up and operational, and it's really an ideal location for the PRC too, over at the 98th and Lorraine location.
So it sounds like we're talking maybe September for this to be all done and all up and running? Is that
Fully operational, I would say October 1st.
October 1st?
And then,
okay.
as Nicole had made mention, we're selling the other facilities, and we anticipate right now closing on all of those by December 1st.
Okay.
Any other questions? Anyone? Yeah, yes, Nora.
Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. I just wanted to provide an answer on the other proposer. The other proposer was NV5.
Thanks. Yep.
Okay. If there's no further questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
So motion and second. All those in favor of approving the item, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-416, Department of Public Works, submitting an amendment to a contract with HDR Engineering, Inc. for design services for the rehabilitation of North Main Street Bridge number 00.12 over the Chagrin River in the village of Chagrin Falls to expand the scope of services effective June 3rd, 2019, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $250,000.
Nicole English again with Public Works. So we're asking for an amendment on a design contract for North Main Street Bridge. This is in Chagrin Falls, right in the center of town, by the popcorn shop if you've been out there. So this is a pretty complicated project. HDR was selected initially through a RFQ process and designed the project. We went out to bid. It was unsuccessful with one bidder significantly over the price. And we went back sort of to the drawing table and talked to contractors about what the issues were. And essentially, unless we want to pay significantly more than our budget in the tune of $2 to $3 million, we need to do some rework on the design before we put it back out on the street for an award or a bid. And so we've gone back. HDR is the designer of record, so we have to go back to them to amend their contract to do some work. It's going to include some environmental work, a new permit for in the stream, and then some design services to update the plans. So that's what we're coming forward for. I did answer the question a little more detailed to you earlier, so if there's any other questions.
Any questions? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Second. Motion and second. All those in favor of approving the item, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-417, is a two-part item. Department of Public Works, A, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 45854, which will result in an award recommendation to APG Office Furnishings in the amount not to exceed $72,963.23 for a government cooperative purchase of office furniture for the Harvard Road Maintenance Yard Consolidation Project, and B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Matt Reimer with the Department of Public Works. If I might make a recommendation to board members, if you could turn to page 29 or 30 of your agenda, that gives a table of the complete furniture picture here that we're just now starting to introduce for this project. Item 417 is one of those packages. Item 418 will be another that you'll see here in a second. But the table that's referenced on that page shows the different procurement packages that we have for furnishings going into this new maintenance yard consolidation effort. The basis of design for this facility was to be an extension of the professional staff configuration that is in this building. By way of scale of about 800 or so workstations, and that the Department of Public Works maintains through our vendors here. With this configuration, we have about 42 or so professional staff that is going in at the maintenance at the Harvard Road facility, as well as a large conference and training center. So that kind of gives you a little bit of the scale. It's roughly about 25,000 to 30,000 square feet worth of professional office and conference and training areas. So back to this particular item. This item is using a Sourcewell cooperative purchase agreement that APG has access to as the vendor. This will be mainly for our conference and training room furnishings and equipment. And I'm happy to, and that incorporates the furnishings for the 200-seat conference and training center and several conference rooms in the administrative areas, a 6-person conference room, an 8-person conference room, and 1 12-person conference room, as well as the 2 different break areas, one for the professional staff and one for the bargaining unit staffs. Happy to answer any of your questions.
Councilwoman.
So knowing this company, knowing that you're going to buy extensively for both places, I thought perhaps did they give you a special rate or a better price, knowing you're coming back for the conference room and 2 different areas, but still using them for the same furniture?
So that's a great question, Councilwoman, and the answer to that is how these packages are laid out. Because if you look at, it's not an item up for consideration today, but I expect it'll be at a future week, either next week or the week after. The U.S. Communities line, which is that $311,000 purchase, that is really the line item that gets us to this vendor, the APG vendor that is referenced in item 417. They are the Herman Miller dealer for this region, and that is the cooperative purchase agreement that is for cubicles. So fast forward to this particular portion, this Sourcewell contract for the trading area. They also have a cooperative purchase agreement that these items are on, and that's why we then use APG through that cooperative purchase agreement in this case. So the best way to get the pricing that you're asking for is through a combination of various purchase agreements as referenced here. The state term package, which is item number 418, a Sourcewell contract package, which is this item, a U.S. Communities contract, which will appear at a future board action, and the NCPA contract, which is also a future board item. And the other ones are informal bids because they are not on contracts that we have access to.
Please.
In understanding that, under 417 for the U.S. Communities contract for $311,000, and then going to 418 with the same line item of U.S. Community contract of 311,217. Are you saying that? Am I looking at this correctly? Under 417 and 418, we have a line item of cubicles from U.S. Communities for 311,217 that you stated.
Oh, no, let me clarify. So item 417 is for the 72,963. Okay. For each of these items, this is a reference that you can see the full picture. Okay. As to reasons why there are multiple packages that may result in the same vendor, that will result in the same vendor through different purchase agreements to get the best price. So, okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, please.
Councilman.
Could you explain a little bit more about what the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchase Program is and how it works?
I can. I don't have my documentation with me, but the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchase Agreement is, I believe, run out of the state of Minnesota. It is intended for government and education cooperative purchasing power. They put out a series of contracts. We've used them on a number of different items. I presented a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning item through Sourcewell last week, as you may recall, a Johnson Controls item. We have used them for shelving through the Kruger International contract at the Halley Warehouse before. It's actually that same Kruger International contract that this Sourcewell contract is based on. So they compete different commodities for the ability for local governments or education districts to be able to have purchasing power and get the best price available to government.
And
Is that a fair statement, Director? It's the best I can answer on without my memory. Okay.
and how do you know when you have an item that needs to be purchased that's a good candidate for Sourcewell?
Sometimes we hear from the vendors. In this case, furniture is a commodity that lends itself to those kind of things, because what you'll typically have, just based on information briefed to me by my interiors folks, you'll have dealers that have a region for a particular vendor, and so the best way to get prices from those particular vendors is through cooperative purchase agreements. General Services Administration has large lines of furniture procurements, so it is a commodity that is suited for cooperative purchasing, but how we find out about them, looking them up on what some of them will be advertised through the national vendors. A range of options that you could identify them being in existence. A lot of them have web search features that you can search for the commodities on. Sometimes we search through those as well.
And if I may, if you, Matt, do you have a check on, as you use these cooperative arrangements to make sure that they're competitive? I mean, I think obviously that's the purpose of them, but do you guys have a check? Is there a way to kind of verify that when you make the purchases? Yes, I know when I see them, I personally go onto the contract, look through the contract documents that are on that in particular, like in this case, the Sourcewell's web page. They give the pricing documents if there are any related to that commodity. They'll give the competitive summary. They'll give the evaluation of the vendors. So I review those whenever I present something related to a cooperative purchase agreement. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor of approving item 417, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Next item.
Yeah, go ahead.
BC 2019-418, Department of Public Works. It's a two-part item. A, submitting an RP exemption on requisition 45638, which will result in an award recommendation to APG Office Furnishings in the amount not to exceed $41,533.20 for a government cooperative purchase of office furniture for the Harvard Road Maintenance Yard Consolidation Project, and B, recommending the award in connection with said RP exemption.
Matt Reimer with the Department of Public Works. So in general, the same statements I just made apply to this item. This item, though, however, uses state term contract pricing for national office furnitures for the 10 professional office staff, supervisory offices that are going to be located in the Harvard Road facility.
Any further questions? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second? Motion and second. All those in favor of approving the item, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks, Matt. Thank you.
Next item, item BC 2019-419, Department of Public Works, submitting an amendment to a contract with LaCourcie Garden Center, doing business as LaCourcie, for the Halley Warehouse Parking Lot Renovation Project for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $15,700.
Good morning, Matt Reimer, Department of Public Works. This is for an amendment request for the construction project we have ongoing at the newly purchased lot on Chester Avenue near Chester and East 40th. That lot is nearly complete. It has pavement on it. We have some site improvements happening right now. This is the final amendment for the project that will take into account impacts that we had when we went through the excavation phase. There were substantial building foundations from an old structure, as well as rock and other unsuitable material that had to be removed for the drainage infrastructure.
Questions? Yes, Trevor.
Matt, the backup says it also, in addition to those issues, to incorporate all vertical design changes required by the City of Cleveland Midtown Corridor. Can you provide a little bit of backup of what that means?
I sure can, yes. So the source of the impact of this project was the underground conditions that we had experienced. But post-award, when we awarded this contract, we then had our permit review from the City of Cleveland Midtown Corridor, and they required some fencing modifications as well as some landscaping requirements on the Chester front of the parking lot. So we've incorporated those.
You know approximately how much that equated to?
We're still waiting for the final pricing. This amendment would cover any of that because we'd already considered it, but I can follow up with you, but I believe we're in the $10,000 or so order of magnitude. But let me follow up with you with the exact amount.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilwoman.
Is there usually a contingency that allows for the unexpected? So did we absorb all the contingency and still exceed with the 15.7?
Yes, Councilwoman. So we're projecting that we will exceed, which is the reason for this ask. And it was just under, I believe, $50,000 for this project.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? There's a motion and second. All those in favor of approving the item, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is a two-part item, item BC 2019-420, Department of Workforce Development in partnership with the City of Cleveland as designated local workforce area number 3. A, submitting an RP exemption on requisition 45793, which will result in an award recommendation to University Hospitals Health Systems, Inc., doing business as University Hospitals, in the amount not to exceed $130,760 for implementation of the Step Up to Patient Care Nursing Assistant model for on-the-job customized training services, and it's for the period June 1st, 2019 through May 31st, 2020, and B, recommending the award in connection with said RP exemption.
Good morning, Frank Brickner from the Department of Workforce Development. We are proposing to use federal WIOA funds to implement a customized training program with university hospitals. University hospitals came to us looking for assistance in finding some individuals to be patient care nurse assistants, and we are in a position where we can help them. We've identified individuals who are eligible under WIOA, low income, and we can provide some training for them to assist them to become employed. The goal over this next year is that no less than 30 individuals will be hired at a rate of at least $14 an hour. We're hoping that it'll be significantly more than that, though. University Hospitals is providing some training. They're nurse assistants, and they're also partnering with Newbridge and Towards Employment to do the training curriculum and to assist with case management counseling. University Hospitals is also coming up with 1/3 the cost of the total training, which is a requirement under WIOA.
Any questions? Yes, Trevor, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, just one comment. My wife works there, so I'll just be recusing myself. It's not related at all to this contract, but just a bit safe.
All right, noted for the record. If there are no further questions, comments, I'd like to make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor of approving the item, please say aye.
Aye.
Hearing none, and one recusal?
Yes.
Abstention? Thank you. All right, thanks, Frank.
The next item is a two-part item, item number BC 2019-421, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services. A, submitting an RP exemption on requisition 45569, which will result in an award recommendation to Domestic Violence and Child Advocacy Center in the amount not to exceed $20,000 for development and implementation of a protection order registry in connection with the fiscal year 2016, improving criminal justice responses to sexual assault, domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking program for the period June 3rd, 2019 through September 30th, 2019. And B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Mary Beth Vaughn from Public Safety. And this is the third of the 3 contracts that we're doing on the Protection Order Registry to provide training for court personnel and prosecution staff related to the Protection Order Registry. As we explained last week, this provider was also part of the grant application that we submitted to the Department of Justice as a named partner, and so we need to make this award directly to them. We can't competitively bid it.
Any questions? Councilman?
Where's the authorization for this protective order registry? Is that local, or is that state, or where does that come from?
I'm not sure that I understand your question. The protection order registry is being developed as part of the data warehouse. That's where we have a contract with Chagrin Valley Dispatch.
It's not a requirement, I think. Is that what you're asking, Councilman? It's a option that the community is choosing to do.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any legal authorization that's required in order to compile and maintain this registry? Does somebody have to sign off on that?
I don't actually have the answer to that question. I know that we have been working very closely with the law department to make sure that everything that has to be done is being done. This protection order registry is being created in conjunction with the Sheriff's Department. In fact, it is the gentleman who is our data warehouse manager is actually the one who's piloting the legal requirements of this project. So I'm very confident that whatever requirements that there are have been met, but I can get more information for you.
Okay, I would appreciate that. It
Okay.
would seem that there would need to be some state code or local code authorization to allow that to be done.
And Councilman, I'm wondering if it's more of a privacy protection, kind of those existing requirements to make sure that we're meeting those things, rather than, if not a affirmative kind of statement of authority.
Okay.
And the grant is specifically for this.
The grant is specifically for this project, and the documents that we're talking about are actually documents that are public record. We're talking about the protection orders that are being filed. And the ones that are going to have access to those are the ones who by law are who have the access. So it is the first responders, the police officers, the dispatchers who are actually imparting that information to the police officers out into the field, the court personnel. But I will get more information for you.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Second. There's a motion and second. All those in favor of approving the item, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, PC 2019-422, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Office of Homeless Services, submitting an amendment to a contract with Mental Health Services for Homeless Persons, Inc., doing business as Frontline Service, for implementation and management of the Coordinated Intake and Assessment Program for homeless individuals and families, and is for the period January 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2019, to extend the time period to May 31st, 2020, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $500,000.
Good morning, Shari Weir from the Office of Homeless Services. We are requesting approval to add the additional funds and extend the time period for the Coordinated Entry Program, which is available to assess the needs of all homeless individuals and families, and then either help them to a safe diversion or refer them to an emergency shelter. The funds will extend the time period through May of 2020, and the funding is from the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Any questions? Councilman?
In your written response here, this amendment is to add funds from a HUD grant which has a funding period of, what should that be?
It should be 6/1/2019, 5/31/2020.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Any further? Yes, Councilwoman.
Just to further understand, the contract is 6/1/18 to 5/31/19. How do we get the 6/1/19 beginning date?
In the answer.
Yeah. I just wondered how does the contract date is, oh, I gotta get the right one here, I'm sorry. 1/1/2018 to 12/31/19. So this is stating 6/1/19. I just wondered how that contract changed from 1/1/18 beginning now 6/1/19. I don't see 6/1.
Is that a mistake in the answer, I think?
Yes, I think so.
So,
Yeah.
all right, so that should be 1/1/18 on the
Or
answer?
6/1/18. Yeah, what's the beginning of the existing?
1/18.
Yeah,
So it should be 1/1/18,
is that right?
5/31.
The contract, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what the original start date was. The end date is now 12/31/19, and so it's being extended.
Through May.
Through May, yes.
But on the agenda, it says 1/1/18, and we believe that's the correct starting date of the current contract. Okay.
I just want to clarify that was the original date of the contract, and we're amending it. The 6/1 that Councilwoman Baker is referring to is the effective date of the additional funds.
Okay. Is that clear? Any further questions? Sure.
If I may, this is going to be ending then 12/31/19 originally, and we're extending it for 5 more months. Am I understanding that correctly? Mm-hmm. What is the reason for extending it 5 more months?
Because the HUD funding, because there are various funding sources involved here, but the HUD funds, because we have to do them through the national competition, and HUD is very arbitrary about how they set those dates. And so this grant year now for this $500,000 is 6/1/19, 5/31/20.
So if I may, so you'll be back for a new contract before the end of May 2020.
Yeah, I mean, and we did an RFP for this initially, and we'll do another RFP next year. And yes, we'll be back with a new contract, presumably.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Motion and second. All those in favor of approving the item, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Next item, BC 2019-423, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Office of Homeless Services, submitting an amendment to a contract with West Side Catholic Center for emergency shelter and rapid rehousing services in connection with the fiscal year 2017 Continuum of Care Homeless Assistance Grant Program, and is for the period June 1st, 2018 through May 31st, 2019, to extend the time period to May 31st, 2020, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $200,303.
Shari Weir, Office of Homeless Services. This is another one of those quirky HUD funding things. Again, because the contract period for the funding for this project that is HUD related has a June 1st start date. And so this extends the contract and adds the funds that are from HUD and also Health and Human Service levy dollars.
Any questions? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Motion and second. All those in favor of approving the item, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shari.
The next item is a two-part item, item BC 2019-424, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Office of Early Childhood. A, submitting an RP exemption on requisition 45291, which will result in an award recommendation to Child Care Resource Center of Cuyahoga County, doing business as Starting Point, in the amount not to exceed $138,067 for management, implementation, and administration of the Language Environment Analysis, also known as LENA, Grow Professional Development Program, in connection with the Improving Child Care Classrooms via LENA project. And it's for the period May 1st, 2019 through November 30th, 2019, and B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Bob Stabe with the Office of Early Childhood. Excuse me. Both this item and the next contract relate to what we're calling our LENA project. LENA is pretty exciting new technology that conducts an assessment of very young children's language environments and then provides feedback to parents and to caregivers and teachers in ways that help them become better able to teach their children to speak. So let me just elaborate on that. What we know about brain development and the acquisition of language shows that a lot of the foundation comes before vocabulary. It's this back and forth interaction. It's the parent making a sound, the child responding, the child making a sound, the parent responding. Those don't have to be words. They can just sometimes be syllables, but it's that dynamic. The LENA technology incorporates a recording device that fits into a vest that the baby wears, and it tracks these conversational turns. And then it produces standardized reports that you can show to parents, you can show to teachers, and you can coach them. And you can show them, more interactions are occurring at bedtime, but what about, at bath time? And you can begin to work with parents and teachers. And any of you who had the opportunity to be at our annual meeting got to hear Steve Hannon, who was the inventor of this technology, also the founder of this organization, who did a really good job of laying out the evaluation data. Sadly, the number of conversational exchanges is different from household to household. Some households have more, some have less. What we know about children's later success with language is that the more conversational turns, the better they're going to learn language. The sooner they're going to learn language, the better they're going to do in preschool. So how are we going to use these? We've got 13 providers. They're all currently UPK providers, but we're not using this with the preschool group. We're using it with the infant and toddlers. So these are providers that also have an infant and toddler classroom. We're using it in their infant and toddler classroom. We've got 13 sites, about 300 children total. We're going to do 3 rounds over the course of approximately 12 months. So the way the contracts break down, starting point, we'll be hiring a part-time manager and then 2 what we're calling classroom coaches who are going to sit down with the teachers, review these reports, and then talk to them about their interactions with the babies and help them improve, find opportunities to introduce more of these conversational turns. In that contract, we've also built in some incentives for each of the classrooms. We're going to give them $1,000 worth of materials for the classrooms to thank them and to incentivize them to participate. And then in the LENA contract, we're purchasing the recording devices, purchasing the vests. It also comes with a one-time initiation fee, an annual subscription fee, and that includes the computer analysis that goes on in the background every night so that you can get the report the next day. Interestingly, these devices are used all around the world because the conversational turns take place in every language. The computer doesn't speak any language. It counts these conversational turns. The last thing I want to mention is the law department did their due diligence and required us to obtain all the safety specifications and standards. So we have a list of all of the national safety organizations that have rated and approved these devices. I'm happy to take your questions.
Questions? Councilman.
I had the opportunity to attend the annual meeting presentation, and it is exciting that we're bringing this significant technology to Cleveland. And my question is whether we're planning to do a longitudinal study over a good length of time to find out whether we confirm that higher turn rates are associated with better performance.
The answer is yes. The answer is yes. We have an agreement with LENA that we're going to be able to link this data with our child data system at CASE, and that's the data system that tracks the participation of children in all of our funded programs, plus their participation in other county benefit programs, and then ultimately the kindergarten readiness assessment and the 3rd grade reading assessment. So we're we've set in place the pieces to make that happen. We want to do it for a year just to see how it goes and get that. But we will be capturing that data all the way along, all along.
So you would have to track them for more than a year, though.
We would be able to track them up to kindergarten and actually up to the 3rd grade reading assessment.
And 300 is a relatively small number of children compared to the county's early childhood population. Do we have plans or capability to expand beyond this number in the future?
Not as I'm standing here today, but we will be thinking in those terms. I forgot to mention that both these contracts are 100% funded by the Cleveland Foundation. They were very excited to participate in this. I think they're going to be very interested in the outcomes and the results as well. I feel like if we get a good result with this initial pilot, that we would be able to identify other private funding and maybe even county funding. The ongoing maintenance is actually relatively modest. The subscription fee, we'll own the devices. The subscription fee and the other fees are about $8,000 a year. So we can keep these 300 devices going. And I feel confident as of today that if we can demonstrate the success, that we can expand this program.
I was just going to ask, go ahead, Trevor. Yeah.
Bob, what ages are we talking about that would be?
18 to 36 months.
And then if the program was expanded, would you need more money for starting point, or would that staff that would be hired, could they handle more children, or would the starting point require to staff up more if you wanted to double?
I think we would talk to them about that to see. It's a little early to know for sure. We haven't looked at those questions of scalability, but we've got a good ongoing relationship with them. So I think if we could, if they could absorb the expansion of the project, they would.
Go ahead. I was just going to ask on 425. I know we're kind of talking about both right now, but is Lena the only vendor that provides this service, or are there other vendors? I understand the rationale with the backup of why you need the RFP exemption, but are they the only vendor that does this?
Yes, this is an exclusive proprietary invention that only they manufacture and distribute.
And then we can talk about it at 425, but then I was just curious of why we wouldn't treat it as a sole source if they're the only vendor that provides that service. But
well, typically, so this is a grant funded. So typically the way we handle that is, we wrote all of these details into the grant. So the grant that the Cleveland Foundation approved identified starting point and then identified Lena Foundation as the provider. So our understanding is that goes through sort of a grant funded contracting process as opposed to sole source. Lenora, am I saying that right?
Lenora Longe, Office of Procurement and Diversity. Yes, if they wrote a vendor into a grant in the process of RFP exemption, the award separately could be a sole source, but then they would need to post it 5 days. But if they've already made the selection based on the grant application, that was the procurement process.
I had one other question, but Councilman, did you have another question?
Just a comment that if we could figure out how to quantify the benefits, this could be a pay-for-success program to expand the service.
You're agreeing, Bob?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm writing this down.
I had just a quick question. So data are collected through the system, and then I assume the provider kind of interprets for the parent, or who are the data for?
So what the data comes back as a report that gives you sort of like hour by hour the number of conversational turns and which child. We're going to be working pretty much exclusively with the classroom teachers. And the 2 coaches that Starting Point would hire, that would be their job, to work with the individual teachers and daily review these reports and help teachers. Maybe you're talking to Johnny 4 times and you've only talked to Beth once. They will work with them on pointing out those differences and helping them to develop the strategies.
So specifically at the sites? not addressing the, the home issue or.
We're gonna, we've got some activities built in for the parents so that they understand it, and we'll need their consent for the children to participate. But this iteration, we're working with the classroom teachers.
Great. Yes, Councilwoman.
Yeah, that was really where my question was going to go. 'Cause we're talking about 1.5 to 3 years old. Okay. And these children are already in a structured classroom.
They're in a classroom.
The vests that they wear, do they go home with those vests or do they come off?
No, they stay at the child care provider. They're neutral colors. I just don't want you to think we're putting the girls in pink and the boys in blue.
No, all yellow. Okay.
I will not have this availability, this data for purchasing purposes, right? Okay, good. Just wanted to know.
Would you say this is a pilot program?
I would call it that. Yeah, I mean, we haven't really been talking about it in those terms, but I would call it a pilot.
Okay. Yeah. And did I hear you say this was voluntary?
Yes.
So parents would have to understand it, sign off?
Correct. They'd have the option to opt out.
And is this vest visible or other children that, okay, so if you have some children wearing it and some children not, is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I suppose that's how that would look. They're neutral colors. I mean, and these are 18 to 36-month-year-old children.
They're what?
They're very young. They're 18 to 36 months, up to 3 years old.
Right. Okay, interesting. Thank you.
Trevor.
I was just going to ask: is there a certain group of individuals that you're trying to target to volunteer for the program, or is it we're opening this up, any volunteers we can get, or what's...
Yeah, we opened it up to any current UPK providers. So currently, through the county's UPK program, we're providing resources to 68 providers that are all over the county. So we narrowed it down. Not all of those entities offer an infant and toddler classroom as well, but for all who did, we said, hey, if you're interested, let us know. And we invited them to the meeting and explained the project to them, and then recruited from amongst the ones who said they were interested.
And then do you have, one more follow-up, do you have 300 children that are already signed up, or is the sign-up process going to happen after approval?
That will happen after the approval.
All right. Yes, Councilwoman.
This is for May 1st, which we're now June 1st, and now we're going through a sign-up program that we haven't initiated yet. When do you how much time do you think you need to actually get a good range, given this ends at the end of November?
Yeah, so we're definitely going to come back with an amendment to extend the time frame. We're looking at 3 rounds, each about 3 months long. So we're hoping to get 2 of those in before the end of this calendar year. Want to try to avoid the holiday period. So first we have to get an extension from Cleveland Foundation, and then we would come back to extend this contract probably at least through the first quarter of 20. So we would have 1 more cohort that we would do.
Just one follow-up. Any additional dollars you think will be needed for those extensions?
No, we've got good solid budgets.
Right. If there are no further questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? So motion and second. All those in favor of approving 424, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-425, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division. Again, Office of Early Childhood. 2-part item. A, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 45293, which will result in an award recommendation to Alina Foundation in the amount not to exceed $31,740 for software license and cloud-based online platform services in connection with the implementation of the Language Environment Analysis Grow Professional Development Program for the Improving Child Care Classrooms via Alina project, and it's for the period May 1st, 2019 through November 30th, 2019. And B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Any further questions? Yes, Trevor.
Sure, just a comment. I think that if the decision was made to expand it, and if it's county dollars moving forward, that we should consider a sole source for the vendor.
Software.
I understand it's grant funded now, so I'm not concerned about it.
That, I think, would be exactly the kind of situation where it's a sole source. Got it.
Good. If there are no further questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second? There's a motion and second. All those in favor of approving the item, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item is a two-part item, item BC 2019-426, Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Children and Family Services. A, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 45616, which will result in an award recommendation to MNJ Technologies in the amount not to exceed $252,275 for a state contract purchase of 500 iPads and messenger cases. And B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Dan Basta, Health and Human Services, on behalf of the Division of Children and Family Services. This is to roll out the enterprise document management system. Basically, we'll be getting 500 iPads for all the workers that will be in the field for Children and Family Services. This will allow them to document cases within the system while they're out in the field. Also, it improves efficiencies as well as providing quicker services to those clients that are in need for the Division of Children and Family Services. This is on state term, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Yes, Councilwoman.
Not so much a question, but I think it's been overdue, and glad to see that you're moving forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second? So motion and second. All those in favor of approving the item, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
Next item, BC 2019-427, Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department, submitting an amendment to a contract with Educare Medical Staffing, LLP, for temporary nursing services, and it's for the period September 17, 2018 through December 31st, 2019, for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $400,000.
Good morning, Donna Cleel, Sheriff's Fiscal Manager. This is to amend the Fourth Amendment for the Educare nursing contract. I did get some questions in advance. If you would like, I can just go through them and start answering. So the first one was, since Metro Health contract is now underway, why do we still need this contract? I did this morning, after looking at these questions, I forwarded an email to some of you. Basically, it was a conversation between Metro's Law Department and Dr. Bruner and Chief Carney. And now I'm not in these meetings, but my understanding is Metro is right now working with Educare and Alliance to try to convert these agency nursing contracts over to Metro, but so far that has not been done. So in the last email I've gotten, it said to continue these contracts until October of this year, because Metro has now taken over all the nurses. The problem is they don't have enough nurses. So they still need agency nurses. So they do want to, I guess, eventually take over these contracts, but until that happens, and I know the law department's been working with Metro's law department, until that happens, we are being told to keep these contracts in place. Again, this is, the contract does expire in December. Excuse me, in December of this year, but I'm being told by October they should either have enough nurses on staff or they should have taken these contracts over, and they will be part of they will now be owned by Metro. Again, if that doesn't happen at the current rate that I'm putting this $400,000 in, and the invoices being around $150 to $200 a month, and that does not happen, I may be back for a Fifth Amendment. So I'm just doing what I am being told to do, and that is keep these agency nurses going until Metro is either staffed enough or until Metro takes over these agency nursing contracts. And again, any detailed questions, I can take those questions, but I would have to probably go to Chief Carney to get an answer.
I was just going to ask first, Don, you're not changing the end date. The end date's the same.
The end date, right. The end date is currently still December of this year. I'm being told, and as you can see in that email I forwarded to you guys, I'm being told by October at the latest, we should no longer be needing these contracts, at least on a county end. But again, originally it was May. The start date was supposed to be May that they were taking it over. Now it's October. So this is a moving target, so I'm just trying to keep it funded until I'm told no longer to do that.
Questions?
Donna, I think if the contract was under Metro, we would still be paying for it. I mean, they would just bill us back, right? I mean, it's really cost neutral to the county. It's just who the contract is with.
Well, yeah, I would say yes and no, because my understanding is we funded the contract enough to put on the required amount of nurses. So at the end of the day, if Metro took it over, then yeah, we would be paying for that contract. However, we would be paying less in Metro nurses because they're not staffed properly. At least that's kind of how I'm understanding it. But either way, I hear what you're saying. Yes, we're going to pay for these nurses either this way or that way. Yes, either way. But again, we are paying for a set amount of nurses, whether they're going to be Metro nurses or agency nurses.
To follow up with that, but just so I want to make sure I have the right understanding. If the contract's required to provide 50 nurses, and between this contract and actual nurses on Metro staff, if it's only 40, we're only going to pay for the 40 that they currently have. And then once they get up to the 50, we're not paying for nurses that they currently don't have.
No, when I received, at least previously, when I received the bills, there was a detailed spreadsheet for, like, I would have labor, I would have operations. So the labor spreadsheet would be detailed with all the workers, their hours and everything, and we would pay for just that. And I'm being told that in the new contract, it's going to be the same way. I will get a detailed spreadsheet of exactly what we're paying for. Now, if they do take over this contract, I would probably expect another detailed spreadsheet to be part of that invoice, separated from Metro labor to be agency nurse labor. At least that would be my expectations. That would be what I'd be looking for, because we always reconcile these invoices to make sure that they're correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't going to change now that with the new contract. And I didn't think it was going to, but just wanted to make sure.
Correct. Like I said, I can confirm that, but that's what I would actually require as the fiscal manager, to get an itemized contract of actual hours to be billed on actual labor.
Other questions? Both council people. Go ahead, Dale first.
Are we expecting Metro to actually hire any of the agency nurses and move them off of the contract and make them regular staff at Metro?
Again, now I was told that was actually happening right now. However, I do know, and this is for the law department to answer, I do know there was the agency nurses, the owners of the agency, nurse agencies, both Alliance, because remember, we still have Alliance also, but the owners were saying, well, wait, we have these non-compete clauses, and I know the law department was requesting copies of those. So I do know that Metro has made an attempt to hire both the agency nurses and the county nurses. How many they've done so far, I don't know. I can get you that answer, and how many they still plan on doing, but I do know there's been a little bit of a back and forth going on. You cannot hire our nurses without paying us, and again, so we've been requesting non-compete clauses. It's been a bit of a nightmare.
Any other questions? Yes,
thanks for the information.
Councilwoman.
Just a question on who is the authority of overseeing these nurses. Is it Metro or is it the sheriff's office? Who is accountable for the hiring of these nurses and putting aside the money?
You mean hiring the agency nurses to work for Metro?
And then who then oversees their duties?
Right now, even though we are paying for the agency nurses, my understanding is Metro Health has taken over all the supervision of county well, there's no longer county nurses, those have all been moved, but of the agency nurses. So Metro Health is doing complete supervision in the jail medical unit. Again, we are still paying the invoices, but Metro has complete oversight. And in terms of doing the hiring, again, my understanding is Metro is the ones, the hiring managers that are making the call whether or not they're going to bring them on board or not.
All right, so just to understand, we're paying for it, but Metro is administering it.
That is my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor of approving the item, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-428, Cuyahoga County Law Library, recommending an award on requisition 45014 and enter into a sole source contract with West Publishing Corporation in the amount not to exceed $273,441.72 for electronic legal research and reference database services for library patrons, and it's for the period June 1st, 2019 through May 31st, 2022.
Good morning. I'm Kathy Dugan. I'm the Librarian and Chief Administrator of the Law Library in the courthouse. And this is for our patron Westlaw contract. And it will have treatises and form sets and practice guides, as well as annotated primary law and the digest system. So it's a really incredible resource for patrons to do their legal research.
Right. Any questions?
OPD, just to make sure they're okay with the sole source affidavit.
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. When OPD uses sole source in account in the caption, that means it is the vendor, the department has complied with the requirements for sole source for Cuyahoga County. These items were both posted, this item and the next one were both posted for the mandatory 5 days with the affidavit, the sole source justification from the department, and there were no inquiries or challenges. As such, we're presenting it as a sole source.
Right. Thank you.
Clarification on that? So because it wasn't challenged, does that mean there isn't another competitor, or is it just because it wasn't challenged?
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. I cannot speak for the entire uniforce, but however, that it was posted, and there was the opportunity for any vendor who felt that the sole source was something that they could provide or some other vendor could provide. If they can do an inquiry and a challenge, and in that case, according to county code, we would need to do a formal process.
And I can address the fact that there are other legal research vendors out there. There are plenty. In fact, the county has an RFP that the law library participates in. But the products and the plans are entirely different. I mean, we also buy CCH. We also buy Heine Line because they provide different, resources in terms of books or databases for our patrons.
Great. Any other questions? Sure.
The contract is for 1 year. Am I reading?
It's a 3-year contract.
I'm sorry. Okay.
That's why it's so much.
Okay. 3-year contract.
If there are no further questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? There's a motion and second. All those in favor of approving this item, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Next item, BC 2019-429, Cuyahoga Law Library, recommending an award on requisition 45015 and enter into a sole source contract with West Publishing Corporation in the amount not to exceed $33,371.04 for electronic legal research and reference database services for library staff. And it's for the period June 1st, 2019 through May 31st, 2022.
This is another Westlaw contract, but it's for very specialized research databases. It will include their brand new Edge product with AI technology and predictive research coding. We also are buying for the very first time their public records, which includes their People Map product and their Company Investigator product. More and more we are getting requests to find missing witnesses or find potential defendants or do competitive intelligence about companies. And so these will be really great products for us.
Are there any questions? Yes, Trevor.
Can you just talk a little bit about, so who's coming in, like, making those requests of you and your staff? Is it attorneys, or who's coming in and asking for that
It's
stuff?
a lot of different types. We serve a lot of different constituents. We have lawyer patrons. We have county patrons. For instance, some of our regular county users are the Court of Appeals, the prosecutor, the public defender. I'm trying to think. Probate court sometimes, DR court sometimes, the legal entities. But we have helped other agencies when they have no database access to find a witness. And maybe they have the SmartLinks product on Lexis, or they have CourtLink on Lexis, but they can't find the person. And maybe having Westlaw will enable us to give them some additional information about those individuals so they can find them.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second? Second. There's a motion and second. All those in favor of approving the item, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for both items.
All right, I think we're on to the consent agenda. We have a couple of items.
Yes, we have consent agenda item numbers BC 2019-430 through 431.
All right. Any questions about those two items? All right. Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda items. Is there a second? There's a motion and second. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda items, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Thank you. We do have a few mission-critical items.
Yes,
right,
we do. We have a total of 3. The first mission-critical item is from the Department of Public Works, recommending an award on requisition 45371 with EPS Supply, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $5,598.36 for delivery system pumps, and the funding source is the Internal Service Fund / General Fund.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Department of Public Works. Requesting approval of a mission critical that we authorized for our department. The vendor's EPS Supply, the dollar amount was $5,598.36. The vendor, again, is EPS Supply. This was for our Justice Center complex, specifically the Jail 1 as well as the court tower. We had multiple pumps that went down. These are pumps that supply the hot water tank, the hot water throughout those buildings. They're circulatory pumps. They're part of the actual delivery system, so we had to get these replaced as soon as possible. So we authorized the mission critical to get these taken care of.
All right. I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add this item. Is there a second? So motion and second. All those in favor of amending today's agenda to add this item, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Are there any questions about the item? Trevor?
Tom, I could be wrong on this, but I thought we had like a maintenance or service contract, a master contract for, or no? Was that not
So there's two answers. One, we're working on a master contract for all of our, actually all of our business units. We're working on master contracts. Those are in process right now. We're working with our law department to write the contract. Second fold, this is a unique type of item. You know, we made multiple calls to vendors to find out who actually had these in stock because we couldn't really afford to go down to this vendor. It's because it is unique. It's an older building. This vendor had them in stock. So sometimes we do have DOs in place, but it may not be with this particular vendor.
All right. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second? Second. There's a motion and second. All those in favor of approving this mission critical item, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
The next mission critical item is for the Division of Children and Family Services, recommending an award on requisition 45959 to Mill Creek Behavioral Health in the amount not to exceed $24,999.99 for residential placement, and the funding source is 30% Health and Human Services levy and 70% Title IV-E.
Good afternoon, Bob Math with the Department of Health and Human Services on behalf of Children and Family Services. This is mission critical for a 14-year-old young girl who's been in and out of a variety of placements, unfortunately, been in and out of a variety of residential facilities, been in and out of detention home, has a whole history of behavioral issues. And the last residential facility she was at, she got in a big fight and they would refuse to take her back. The placement division at DCFS sought out all the local residential providers in town, and nobody would accept her, and they identified a residential facility called Mill Creek in Arkansas, and she's been placed there back in, about a month ago.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add this item. Is there a second? We have a motion and second. All those in favor of amending the agenda to include this item, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Are there any questions? Trevor.
Bob, I just have a question on the per diem rate. It looks like it's about just $550 or so per day when you add, and you're only asking for $25,000. That seems like that would get eaten up pretty quick. What's your plan after?
No, this will cover. Then the person will be the provider will be on our master list.
Okay, so
you
you're
know.
gonna-
So this is just so we can pay that provider in the interim until until it's approved for the master list.
Any other questions about this item? Councilwoman?
Just curious about her being at the county juvenile detention facility. Has she been diagnosed and treated and given the services that she needs when she was at the county juvenile detention facility? I mean, it sounds like she has a number of mental health issues.
I'm not sure how much treatment they actually get at the detention facility. You know, she's been, you know, this teenager's been in and out of other facilities and has been in treatment, foster care, and other residential facilities to provide the treatment. While she's at DH, I'd have to ask the, you know, DCFS. I'm not sure how much treatment she really got in the short term she was at detention home.
Okay, it just seems that putting her in the county juvenile detention facility was probably not a great move for her.
My
her
sense is
history.
out of necessity because she had to be removed from her current placement.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilman.
I'm hearing the voice of my former council president, Ms. C. Ellen Connolly, and I'm wondering how many children we currently have in out-of-state facilities.
Councilman Miller, I have to get back to you on that. I don't know. You know, they reduced the number of placements, you know, over time to out of state, and I mean out of county, then out of state, and now I think that number is unfortunately being picked up because the number of facilities. There's a limited number of facilities that'll take certain children, so I think that's increased. I can get you those exact numbers though.
So could you get me total number, and out of the total, how many out of the county but in the state, and then how many are out of state?
Can do.
Okay, thank you.
If there are no further questions, Councilwoman? Yeah.
In moving her to the Mill Creek Behavioral Health Center, it looks like they have the services there to provide for her, that we're moving her specifically there because of the issues that she has.
That's correct.
There are no further questions. I'd like to make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Motion and second. All those in favor of approving the item, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Next mission critical item, Division of Children and Family Services recommending an award on requisition 45961 to Mill Creek Behavioral Health in the amount not to exceed $24,999, and it's for residential placement services, and the funding source is the 30% Health and Human Services levy and 70% Title IV-E.
Bob Math again on behalf of Children and Family Services. This is a similar scenario to the other young lady. This is a 16-year-old that's been, again, in and out of foster homes. Actually was in an adoptive home, and the adoptive mother could no longer, handle her behavior, even with all the support, the post-adoption support that was provided to the family. And, the adoptive parent just could not continue with, caring for the child. And the child's been in and out of other residential facilities again. And this Mill Creek apparently is the one they've been able to identify can handle these kind of unique circumstances with children with, significant behavioral issues.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to include this item. Is there a second? There's a motion and second. All those in favor of amending the agenda to include this item, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Any questions? Councilman?
Does our responsibilities end when the child reaches 18, or do we have responsibilities that continue beyond that point?
Our responsibilities end when the child becomes emancipated. If the child's no longer in school, if the child's in school, we can maintain custody, beyond 18. But if they're not in school at 18, we terminate our involvement.
So, if the child has continuing needs, how would those needs likely be taken care of?
I'll have to find out. It's a good question. I'm sure I can't really address that.
I would say, it's the challenge of children that age out of care, and there are various efforts underway to try to support them. But it's, to speak comprehensively about it, I think
there is no simple solution.
Okay, thank you.
That does that child come back to Ohio, or is it up to that child to stay in Arkansas, whatever it is that they choose to do? Is there any follow-up of what happens to the child when they age out?
I think normally DCFS does follow up with children as they age out of foster care. Where the child would, where the child would end up staying, I think ultimately is again, it's a difficult decision. You know, I'm not sure the child will be in a position to make that kind of, you know, decision, but you know, that's what happens with kids aging out of foster care, and that's why you know, the problems, there are significant problems with kids aging out of foster care with these kind of behavioral issues.
The department has a process and a way to try to support children in that scenario, but you know, I don't know that they have control. I think they try to do what they can to support
them with the initial supports as best they can.
Given we're sending them though to a different state, that's a little different than keeping them in state and following up. And sent to another state, we're really not in control at all. I just wondered if there was any steps that we take when
at the end of when they age out in that sense. Yeah. If there are no further questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? There's a motion and second. All those in favor of approving this item, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Is there any no further items, Andrea, right?
No further business at this time.
Any public comment?
And no public comment.
All right. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Thanks a lot.